Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Frank Favaro, and Frank and I this is going to be a good show. Welcome to the show, Frank.
I'm excited to be here, Lori. Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yes,
good.
you're excited to finally be here because Frank and I had our initial conversation like 6 months ago. And then things have gotten in the way and we've had to keep rescheduling. And here we are. And I'm very happy to be here.
Better late than never, right?
That's right. I mean, everything happens in the time it's supposed to happen. So
That's
here
so
we
true.
are.
I love that.
Yeah. So let's start out with I'm curious to know, what were the values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to making you who you are today?
Great question. What are the values and beliefs that I was raised with that makes me who I am today? So the values and beliefs come from, I would say, my family, my parents, my grandparents. I had two grandfathers in my life that were both just extraordinary in different ways. My namesake, Frank Favaro, I was named after my grandfather. He was a union leader. He had a seventh grade education. He grew up in the streets of Akron, fighting to not get his lunch money taken in the Great Depression, and he knew how to fight. He became a professional prize fighter. He was uh, a light heavyweight who was ranked in the top 10 in the world at one time until he went to New York City. And next thing you know, the mob took over his contract. And next thing you know, it's a whole new life in that happens. And, from him, he had to learn to stay alive. He was a very courageous person. And, he taught me the power of loyalty and the power of courage,
Mm.
and those define me. And it was part of what we talked about. So if I didn't make eye contact with him as a kid, he wouldn't be afraid to like pretend like he was going to take a swat at me. Like those things that were very important in life. Eye contact, don't look at approaching people the right way, were very very much I would say prioritized.
Hmm.
And then on the other side, I had my grandfather, my mom's father, Jim Biggins, and he was the guy who you would say, if you can't get along with Jim Biggins, you can't get along with anyone. He just had that natural ability to connect with people and build relationships. And I can just hear him laughing today because he had just the greatest sense of humor and laughter. And he really taught me how to be a great husband and how to be a great friend to people and how to serve the community. So I really did have a yin and a yang in terms of the people that influenced me in my life. And I think I got the best of both worlds.
That's awesome. How much time did you have with each of your grandfathers?
Yeah, they both died in 2004, in the same year, actually.
Wow.
And I was 27 years old at the time.
Okay. So,
So I
I
had
mean, we
27 years.
we never get enough time. Like whatever time we have is never enough. And at the same time, you got a lot,
I did.
into your adulthood to really appreciate what you were getting from them.
Yes. And I wish if I would have known what I know today, then I would have spent obviously a lot more
Of
time picking
course.
their brains,
Yeah.
right? But I
Right.
was a 20-some-year-old kid who thought he knew it all. And unfortunately, but I think actions are the best way to learn, right? It's not what people tell us. It's their actions,
Yeah.
and seeing both of those, great men, and how they influenced me in, that was, they led by example. And, and my father and my mom, they were great parents too. Very fortunate. But they both had their shortcomings, right? Like we all do.
Yeah.
But I would say, my grandfathers, I would say, are the pillars that define, who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm not afraid to stand up and stand out too.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people, fear that being different today. I want to be different. I want to embrace myself. I want to have the courage to stand up for what's right. And when it's not right, do the right thing for my kids. Lead by example, and show rather than tell, because it's easy to talk.
It is easy to talk. It's also easy to say that. I think it's easier to say that now at the age that we are now. But were you able to do it when you were younger? And how did that play out in your career? Because, we have more confidence, I think, now, most people. As you get older, you develop more confidence in yourself.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah. So how did that play out in the early part of your career? Like, were you always doing things that you felt were the right thing for you, and if you weren't, that you would be quick to make a move and change to go somewhere, do something else that was better suited for you, or were you, you know, how did that start?
Yeah. So my story, I tell my story, and a lot of times the sport of wrestling defined me. I was a pretty high profile wrestler as a kid growing up and through high school, and super fortunate to be a part of a high school wrestling dynasty, a team that won 4 state and 4 national titles. And but I went to college, and I flunked out of college. And the only reason I went to college is to continue wrestling. Like
Mm.
I didn't want to go to school. I never really liked school, didn't enjoy school. And it showed with my grades. And the only reason I continued school was to continue wrestling. And the moment I didn't want to wrestle anymore is the moment I didn't want to go to school anymore. And I was just beaten down, and I felt like a failure, and I didn't know my worth to this world other than wrestling.
Hmm.
And I never forget, I was in my early 20s, and I'm saying, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not in school. My parents are not real happy with the fact I dropped out. What do I know how to do? And I'm like, I know how to wrestle. Great. How can I earn money? How can I earn a living doing that?
Right, right, right. It's
And
like boxing. There's a
yeah,
little bit more clear of a path to a professional
yeah,
boxing, wrestling. I don't know.
not much. I mean, the UFC was just getting started, but my grandfather at the time, he would never allow my father to box professionally or amateur in a ring because of, he said, you use your mind to do, in life, not your fists. I had
Hmm.
to do that. You don't have to. Different person, different life. So I said, well, I know how to lose weight. I know I've been exercising. So what can I do? So I got started, and I started helping people on their health and fitness goals. And and that's where I really took off. And those I spent 7 years in that entire industry. I went from the front lines of people coming in, complete strangers, and the objective was to get to know who these people are. What are they trying to accomplish? What are their goals? And then how can I help them achieve that goal? And I loved it. I loved how I could take a complete stranger and turn them into a friend, right?
Hmm.
Within in an hour's time,
Yeah.
you know, and earn their trust in a short time, and then go out there and help them, accomplish their goals. But to your point of what you asked me, like, was it always there? No, like I failed tremendously at first with that. Like I had to learn that, you get a short time to make a first impression,
Right.
right? And we want to do business with people that we know and we like and we trust. And the moment I started prioritizing the other person rather than myself is when everything really took off. And I figured it out, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, but no, that did not happen at first at all. There was a lot of failure with, and confidence wasn't there, to your point.
Right, right, right. But what you learned, that skill about asking people questions and figuring out how you could help them and help them get to their goal. I mean, that's the basis of business success, regardless of your industry. Or I would venture to say
100%.
even success in life overall.
That's it. Yeah, I agree. It's the ability to ask questions and get people comfortable enough with you to answer those questions. And then when they don't give you the answer you need, you know how to ask it a different way, right?
Yeah.
And it's understanding that you questions are the answer, right? It's the only, it's really the only way
Yes.
you're going to get there.
Yes, sensei. Questions are the answer.
Was that it from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
No,
maybe?
I don't know. I never saw that. I was just, it sounds very zen. So, but you did end up going into corporate, right?
I did. I met my wife in the fitness industry, and she was just the perfect person for me to challenge me. And she said, "Are you happy?" And I said, "I love what I do." And she's like, "But I think you could do it so much more in a different industry, and you could probably accomplish more in your life if that's what you wanted." Now, as a 20-something-year-old, I loved the challenge of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, well,
Plus, wait, I'm
yeah,
betting you probably also wanted to impress her.
I did.
Let's not leave that piece out.
I did want to impress her, and I wanted to show her that I could do anything, right?" And I did. You know, I've been in 6 industries in my career, and I've performed extremely well in all of them. Because to your point, it does come back to understanding who are these people. Can I connect with them authentically and make an emotional connection? And if I can do that, can I uncover their the opportunities to help them and figure out what that looks like? And can I earn their trust and support them along that journey? And if I can, then business is pretty simple and
Mm-hmm.
straightforward.
Yeah, I love that. So the show is called Fine is a four-letter word, as you know. So tell me about the time when you were saying everything was fine and it wasn't fine.
I don't know how many examples I could come up with that. Uh, there, there, there are so many examples of that, and some of them, I just realizing in my life I'm still like getting over. And I wrestling was a big part of me, and I feel like it burned me out, and I had to tell myself I was fine. But I wasn't. I was completely depressed. Um, I was projected in high school to win 2 state championships. They have this big thing, and oh, you're the projected champion, and I came up short twice in my life. I
That's a
failed.
lot of pressure for a teenager.
Huge pressure. Um, on a nationally championship team, you are, all the articles written on you throughout the year, and you're a kid, and then not only that, you have parents and your dad and your grandfather. They expect you
Mhm.
to, that courage and strength piece that you're
Yeah,
raised with is way more weight, also because now it's upholding a name, so to
right.
speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, expectations are very heavy.
Very. And they, to me, were very, very heavy. And you know I was supposed to win twice. I lost in the finals once, and the other year where I was even supposed to win even more so, my senior year, I ended up taking a 4th place. And it
Mhm.
was just, they wrote an article in the paper about like the lowest of lows, and they interviewed me on the crying on the walls of the right the huge arena, a basement floor, and the press is down there interviewing me as I'm sobbing and pondering a life that will go on without a state title. And like, I just read that article the other day and I started crying again. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that was such a challenging time. But fine is a 4-letter word, and I was fine, but I was definitely not fine. And that turned into be, though, the biggest blessing in my life. Because that's where I've realized, like, that story, that failure, that testimony is what's helped me to be what I am, what I'm supposed to be. And I was destined for greatness. I felt like in 7th grade, my parents got divorced, and that was another fine. Is, I'm fine, but I'm not fine. I
Yeah.
was an absolute, and I blamed, like, the fact that they didn't stay together. I blamed that on myself. Like they didn't
Mm.
love me enough. Like as a kid,
Wow.
you take on this, and that changed my course real fast. And it's like I stopped caring as much about things when that happened. And, my parents were living their own life at that time. They weren't worried. Like, I was fine
Yeah.
in their mind, but I wasn't. And no one
Right.
really spoke to me about it, like in a
Yeah.
way that I ever was okay with.
Yeah. I relate to that because I was the same age when my parents got divorced, and it wasn't right. There wasn't a lot of discussion around it.
No.
I did not take on the burden of feeling like it was my fault, but still, I mean, there's things that you can look back on and go, okay, well, like somebody was asking me the other day about like, well, why did they? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. That was like adult stuff. I was a kid. But
Yeah.
but I want to go to another part of your story that you had shared with me in the pre-show, um, that you had told me was fine, not fine, and that was you were earning more money and you were more successful than ever, but you were unhappy and ended up quitting your job.
Yeah. So 2020, we remember that year, pandemic year, right? And
Yeah.
uh, I was earning more money than I'd ever earned in my entire career, but I was so dissatisfied and just emotionally wanting out. Just I felt that I was not using myself in the way that I was supposed to be. And in the middle of 2020, I quit my job in the middle of the pandemic in December of 2020. And I said, I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to start my own business, and I'm going to help companies improve the customer interaction part. That is business.
Hmm.
If you can't do well with customer interactions and building those relationships and the things we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
asking great questions and earning trust and how do I communicate effectively? And if we can't do those things, it doesn't matter how good you are in the technical side. We're emotional people, and we make buying decisions off of, how we feel about people and how people make us feel. And I quit my job and I said, this is, and I can't say I said that to myself. I believe that the spirit, was talking to me
Hmm.
in a way that I had to listen. Like it just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I would say, well, what happens if I fail? And I always said, well, it'll be okay. You'll work itself out. And I said, and the spirit came to me and I said, Frank, you've been so successful doing something that you're completely unhappy doing. Imagine how successful you're going
Mm.
to be being happy.
Yes.
And
Yes. And
it
I have
gave me
two
the
questions.
courage.
One was also you had a track record of surviving quote unquote failure. And we've talked on this show many times about the definition or the redefinition of what failure is. Because I forgot to also say that back in 2013, you said you got laid off um, from the professional job that you had, and that you took a job, a sales job that was doing something very different. So I bring that up because you're listening to spirit. I want to ask you a question about that too. But you also had evidence from the past that you had survived these quote unquote failures. Like you just were talking
True.
about wrestling and
True.
not winning state title. Um,
True.
yeah.
Yeah. And I having that proof of concept, the idea that I've overcome this before, um, you know, have courage. I've always, my grandfather said, faith and fear are both things that you can't see,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to believe in one or the other. So we all have that choice.
Yeah.
And I've overcome so much in my life. I honestly feel like I could overcome anything. And um, you know, and sometimes, when it's the hardest, you think like, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to figure this out? I just had a situation yesterday where I just totally screwed up something like really bad. And I dropped the ball, and it's impacting a lot of people. And it's like, okay, but what can I do today to make this right and do damage control as much as I can and,
Yeah.
and improve? And there's always a point being this, there's an answer to every question, right? There's a way to figure out everything there is. And I truly believe that.
So you mentioned that you were listening to spirit. Is there a
Yes.
practice that you have that helps you do that? Like what do you have a routine, a morning routine, an evening routine, or like what is it that helps you tune into that voice?
Yeah. So for me, at that moment in time, and I still do this today, on average 5 days a week, I try to get up very early in the morning, and I try to and I power off my phone, and I go for a walk in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts me in the environment where I can just get clarity, and I can turn off the noise, and I can start being way more conscious of my thoughts and what I'm thinking. And that's when I would tune in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you do that. The Japanese, I understand, have a practice called forest bathing,
Hmm.
where they similarly go into nature and just like absorb, I don't know, absorb wisdom of the trees. But you're kind of doing the same, you're putting
Yes.
yourself in that natural environment without the electronics, without all the outside stimuli.
Have to, for me, like, because that spirit, that, like, and don't get me wrong, prayer is a big part of my life also, but those conversations with spirit kind of, they happen for me way more so, and I walk out with answers
Mm-hmm.
of and
Mm-hmm.
feeling better about the scenario, the situation, whatever it is I'm seeking. So, and it's an opportunity to heighten your sense of awareness.
Yes.
I walk past people that are on that same trail and they're on the phone.
Right.
I'm not. Sometimes they'll run right into me if I don't move because they are so unaware.
Yep.
But it's an opportunity to really enhance your senses, your
Yeah.
what you see and what you hear. And that is spirit, right? It's the
Yes.
living.
Yes.
It's everything. And it's it's the greatest gift for me was to finally start doing that, and it's helped me so much in my life.
How did you give yourself the space and time to do it? Because what I hear from a lot of people is, I don't have time to do that.
Well, I love that I don't have time to do it. It's something I overcame a lot in the fitness, 7 years of that, because that was everyone's number one excuse. I don't have time to get healthy. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
time to, and yeah, we only get 24 hours, each and every one of us every day. It's what we make time for.
Yeah.
And for me, it was worth the time. It was an investment. because I was walking out of there knowing I was better, feeling better. And when I wouldn't go do it, I would feel the need for it. So once you start doing it, and I tell people when I was in the fitness industry, and I still use this today with my business, but the hardest part about getting started is just getting started,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And once we do, and we see that made me feel better, I have a little bit more clarity or peace or whatever. Um, then you go back and want to do it again.
Right. Right. And it doesn't necessarily happen the first day. It could.
Could. It could. But I've got, like most of us, I got a lot on my mind. And I need that break from all the noise and the distraction of our lives to it's a gift. And
Yeah.
we're only shortchanging ourselves if we don't take advantage of it.
Right. And I think a lot of people think that that's okay because they put everybody else ahead of them. I need to take care of everybody else before I can take care of myself.
It's true. But you can better serve those if you're serving yourself
Yeah.
also.
Right.
And, I get it. My wife, same thing. Like she prioritizes everyone, and we love her so much for that. But at the same time, she was starting to go crazy because she needed that some time for her.
Mm-hmm.
And now she takes that time and she sees the why behind it, and it's helped so much. And I think we have to take time for ourselves uh, to stay balanced. And there's no perfect balance ever,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
it's to stay in balance.
Right. Right. To stay sane, to stay
Yeah.
at your optimal, like to stay at the optimal that you were put here to be.
And that's different for everyone,
Yeah.
right? In terms of, because we all have different gifts and different priorities. But yeah, but you have to, like, because if you don't, I really believe that we're either green and growing, right, or we're ripe or rotting, and it's one or the other. And so to stay green and growing and to be healthy and to continue and improve relationships in your life and everything else, like we need that.
Yes. Yes. 100%. What is on the horizon? What's next for Frank Favaro?
What is next for Frank Favaro? So we are doing a lot of coaching and consulting in the mechanical trades. And we're really breaking down this whole idea of, you know, old mentalities and just prehistoric way of doing things. And, what got us here is not going to get us there. And we are really taking that and helping companies better serve their people. And then once they do that, they can better serve their customers.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's why I'm here. And we're going to take that next year and we're going to step it up. We're going to create some new, uh, what we're going to call, everyone's doing a mastermind, so to speak, but we're going to start doing more of an alliance, bringing people together from the industry. We're going to start doing some micro coaching stuff on 90-second virtual platforms that is going to be coming out. My goal is to publish my first book in 2025 also. So that's super exciting. And, just trying to keep moving the ball forward and watch my two beautiful kids grow and watch them you know hopefully continue to do the right things and have a great life. So I think it's keeping it all going and trying to be a better version of myself at the same time.
Yeah.
So
What's the book going to be about?
I think the book is gonna it's definitely gonna talk about um, failure, overcoming adversity. But it's also going to be a lot about how my grandfather really taught me how to think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we would sit down on Sundays, Italian family get together, spaghetti, meatballs, all the pig's
Yep.
feet, you name it. We
Yep.
all
Wait,
the
wait. Was
stuff.
it sauce or was it gravy?
Well, we're not from New York, but New York people they call it gravy, but it's sauce.
Okay, just
It's
checking.
Sicilian. My grandfather was Sicilian. It was sugo, the sauce. But yeah, but we would get together and he would sit and he would drink wine after dinner and he would chain smoke cigarettes. And this was all indoors because
Of
that's
course.
what happened
Because
at the
it was,
time.
yeah, it was like the
It's just
70s, right?
the
Yeah.
way it was. And he would sit and read poetry. And then he would quiz my brother and I on what it meant and
Wow.
how we took it and what we took away from it. And we had to learn how to pay attention. We had to learn how to understand and listen actively. And the book is going to be about, I've trademarked it. It's called Active Understanding.
Mm.
So it's not just listening, but it's being active and being present and being 100% there. And it's reading people and body language. And it comes from some of the old school and some of the new school. So yeah, that's what it
Awesome.
is.
I'm always like, we could go on for a lot longer, but we won't. But the stories about that, our grandparents' generation, because you already mentioned he had a seventh grade education. And
Yes.
yet he's teaching you how to interpret and analyze poetry. And
Yes.
he was a fighter. He was like, it's such a like dichotomy of a person
Yeah.
and so fascinating. So I'll look forward to when you get this book out. Let me know. We'll drop
Thank you.
that. It will come back and we'll put that in the show notes so anybody who's listening later down the road can get access to it. Before we go, Frank, what is the song you listen to when you need an extra boost of energy? Maybe when you're training.
Lenny Kravitz, Believe.
Mm, good one.
Yeah. I am here, right? And it gets into who are we? We're one, right? And we're human, and we are here to serve each other and help each other, and we have to believe. And it has a great guitar solo. So
Love
so yeah.
it. All right. Lastly, if someone wants to continue a conversation with you, where is the best place for them to find you?
Email me at Frank at serve SERVE centric CENTRIC coaching COACHING.com. That's pretty long.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a link to that in the show note to make it easier.
Perfect.
Frank, thank you so much for joining me today on Fine is a Four-Letter Word.
Lori, thank you for having me.